Halloween night in Ravenbrook. Texas should have been a harmless, candy-filled memory. Instead, it ended with a teenage girl dead and a 16-year-old boy sitting in court like he owned the place. Tyler Reddick walked into the juvenile courtroom wearing a grin so smug it chilled the entire gallery. For Tyler, this wasn't justice. This was an act. His act. He strutted, laughed under his breath, and treated the judge like another background extra in the performance inside his head. The charge printed on the docket sounded almost harmless. Reckless endangerment. But what he was accused of, the brutal Halloween night murder of 14-year-old Emily Ward, was anything but. He thought he had beaten the system. No witnesses, no weapon, no confession. And his father? Silent, ashamed, but unwilling to betray his son. Tyler believed he was unstoppable. But a single piece of evidence, one recording no one knew existed, was about to destroy everything. By the time the judge spoke his name for the final time, the performance would be over. And the person who ended it would be his own father. The morning Tyler James Reddick entered the Ravenbrook County Juvenile Justice Center, the sky hung low and gray over the Texas plains. Inside the building, the air conditioning hummed with mechanical precision, keeping the temperature at exactly 72 degrees. The courtroom itself was smaller than most people imagined when they thought of courtrooms. No towering ceilings, no dramatic marble columns, just beige walls, fluorescent lighting, and rows of wooden benches that had been worn smooth by decades of anxious families. But despite its modest appearance, the room held an electric tension that morning. Every seat in the gallery was filled. Reporters lined the back wall with cameras and recording devices. Emily Ward's family sat in the front row on the left side, their faces carved from grief and exhaustion. And Tyler Reddick sat at the defense table, leaning back in his chair like he was waiting for a movie to start. Tyler was 16 years old, tall for his age, with sandy brown hair that he had styled carefully that morning. He wore a navy blue suit that his father had bought specifically for this appearance, but he wore it carelessly. The tie was loose. The collar was unbuttoned at the top. His posture screamed disrespect. His attorney, Marcus Holbrook, a middle-aged public defender with thinning hair and tired eyes, sat beside him, shuffling papers. Holbrook had already told Tyler 3 times that morning to sit up straight. Tyler had ignored him each time. Judge Patricia Bryant entered the courtroom at exactly 9 o'clock. She was a stern woman in her early 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a tight bun and reading glasses that hung from a chain around her neck. She had presided over juvenile cases in Ravenbrook County for 23 years, and in that time, she had seen almost everything. But as she looked down at the case file in front of her, at the photographs of Emily Ward's lifeless body lying in a drainage ditch on Halloween night, she felt something cold settle in her stomach. This case was different. This defendant was different. "All rise," the bailiff announced, and the courtroom stood as one. Judge Bryant took her seat and surveyed the room. Her eyes lingered for a moment on Tyler, who had stood lazily, hands in his pockets, and was now sitting again before she had even settled into her chair. She made a mental note of it. She made mental notes of everything. "We are here today for the arraignment of Tyler James Reddick," Judge Bryant began, her voice clear and authoritative. "Mr. Reddick is charged with reckless endangerment resulting in death. The state has filed this case in juvenile court, but the prosecution has indicated they may seek certification to adult court pending the outcome of preliminary proceedings." Tyler yawned. It was not a subtle yawn. It was theatrical, his mouth opening wide, his hand not even bothering to cover it. Several people in the gallery gasped quietly, Emily's mother, Susan Ward, made a sound like she had been struck. Marcus Holbrook closed his eyes and pressed his fingers to his temples. "Mr. Reddick," Judge Bryant said sharply, and Tyler looked up at her with an expression of vague curiosity. "This is a court of law. You will show respect for these proceedings and for the memory of Emily Ward. Do you understand me?" Tyler shrugged. "Yeah, sure, Your Honor," he said, and there was no mistaking the sarcasm in his voice. Judge Bryant's jaw tightened, but she continued. "How does the defendant plead to the charge of reckless endangerment resulting in death?" Marcus Holbrook stood quickly. "Not guilty, Your Honor. My client maintains his complete innocence in this matter." "Not guilty plea is entered," Judge Bryant said, making a note. "Bail has already been set at $250,000, which has been posted. The defendant will remain under house arrest with electronic monitoring pending trial. Trial date is set for November 15th. That gives us 3 weeks. Are there any preliminary motions?" The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Angela Torres, stood. She was in her late 40s, with dark hair cut short and a reputation for being relentless. She had prosecuted some of the most difficult cases in Ravenbrook County, and she had won most of them. When she looked at Tyler Reddick, her expression was one of barely controlled anger. "Your Honor, the state would like to note for the record that the defendant's behavior today has been disrespectful and inappropriate. We believe this speaks to his character and his attitude toward this court and toward the victim." "Noted, Miss Torres," Judge Bryant said. "Anything else?" "Not at this time, Your Honor." "Very well. This court is adjourned until the trial date. Mr. Reddick, I suggest you spend the next 3 weeks reflecting very carefully on the seriousness of these charges." Dismissed. As the judge left the courtroom, Tyler turned in his seat and looked directly at the press cameras lined up along the back wall. He smiled. It was not a nervous smile or an uncertain smile. It was a smile of absolute confidence. He mouthed the words, "They got nothing," directly into one of the cameras. The gesture was captured by every news outlet in the room. By that evening, the clip would be playing on every local news station in Texas, and Tyler's smirking face would become the symbol of everything the public hated about entitled youth. Marcus Holbrook grabbed Tyler's arm as they stood to leave. "What is wrong with you?" he hissed under his breath. "Do you have any idea what you just did? That clip will be everywhere. You just made yourself the most hated kid in Texas." Tyler pulled his arm free. "Relax, man. They don't have anything real. It's all circumstantial. My dad explained it to me. No weapon, no witnesses, no confession. They're bluffing." "Your father is not a lawyer," Marcus said, his voice strained with frustration. "And even if everything you just said is true, which I am not conceding, you need to understand that juries convict on circumstantial evidence all the time. And more importantly, you need to stop acting like this is a joke. A girl is dead, Tyler. Emily Ward is dead. Her family's sitting right there, and you're smiling for cameras. What is wrong with you?" Tyler looked at his attorney with genuine confusion. "I didn't do anything," he said simply. "So why should I act guilty?" Marcus had no answer for that. He gathered his briefcase and papers and walked out of the courtroom, leaving Tyler to follow behind him. As Tyler passed Emily's family, Susan Ward stood up. She was a small woman with graying blonde hair and eyes that looked like they had not slept in weeks. She stared at Tyler, and for a moment, he met her gaze. There was no smirk now, no performance, just two people looking at each other across an impossible distance. Then Tyler looked away and kept walking. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed Tyler and his father. Cameras flashed, microphones were thrust forward. Questions came from all directions. Tyler's father, Robert Reddick, was a broad-shouldered man in his early 50s who worked as a plant manager at a manufacturing facility outside Ravenbrook. He had been a good father, by most accounts. Coached Tyler's Little League team, helped with homework, attended parent-teacher conferences. But now he stood on the courthouse steps looking like a man who had aged 10 years in 3 weeks. His face was drawn, his eyes were red-rimmed. He held up one hand to silence the reporters. "My son is innocent," Robert Reddick said, his voice shaking slightly. "He had nothing to do with Emily Ward's death. This is a tragedy for her family, and our hearts go out to them. But Tyler was not involved. He was at a party that night with friends. The police have the wrong person. Mr. Reddick, do you have any comment on your son's behavior in court today?" One reporter shouted. Robert's jaw clenched. "No comment. We just want the truth to come out." Tyler stood beside his father with his hands in his pockets, that same slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. He looked relaxed, confident, untouchable. As the reporters continued to shout questions, Tyler leaned toward one of the cameras and said, loud enough to be picked up by multiple microphones, "I'm innocent. End of story." Then he and his father got into their truck and drove away, leaving the press to file their stories and the public to form their opinions. Most of those opinions were not favorable. By the time Tyler got home and checked his phone, he had been mentioned in over 5,000 social media posts. Most of them called him a murderer. Some called him worse. Tyler scrolled through them with mild interest, then tossed his phone on his bed and went to play video games. He genuinely believed he was going to walk away from this. He believed the system could not touch him. He was wrong. In the 3 weeks between the arraignment and the trial, Angela Torres and her team worked 18-hour days building their case. The investigation had started on November 1st, the morning after Halloween, when Emily Ward's body was discovered in a drainage ditch near Willow Creek Park. The cause of death was blunt force trauma to the head. Emily's Halloween costume was torn. Her candy bucket was found 20 feet away, its contents scattered across the grass. Detective Carlos Ruiz had been the lead investigator from the beginning. He was a 20-year veteran of the Ravenbrook County Sheriff's Department, a methodical man who believed in evidence and procedure above all else. Emily had been trick-or-treating with 2 friends that night. At 8:45, she had told them she wanted to go home. She lived only 4 blocks away. Her mother had set a 9:30 curfew. Emily said goodbye at the corner of Maple Street and headed home alone. She never made it. Detective Ruiz interviewed Madison and Bethany extensively. Both girls were traumatized but cooperative. Nothing seemed unusual that evening. The breakthrough came when Detective Ruiz found text messages between Emily and Tyler Reddick dating back 6 weeks. Tyler had been trying to ask Emily out. She had declined. He had persisted. She had declined again, more firmly. Then the messages had turned hostile. Tyler had called her names, told her she thought she was too good for him. The last message Emily received from Tyler was on October 28th, 3 days before Halloween. It said, "You'll regret treating me like that. I always get even." Detective Ruiz brought Tyler in for questioning on November 3rd. Tyler came with his father and Marcus Holbrook. The interrogation took place in a small room with a camera recording everything. Detective Ruiz read Tyler his rights. Tyler said he understood them. "Where were you on October 31st between 9 and 11 in the evening?" Ruiz asked. "I was at a party. Tyler said, leaning back in his chair. Derek Mason's house. I was there all night. Did you see Emily Ward that night? No. Detective Ruiz slid a printed copy of the threatening text message across the table. Did you send this to Emily? Tyler glanced at it. I don't remember. Maybe. We had a thing. I asked her out and she said no. I was pissed. I probably said some dumb stuff. But I didn't do anything to her. Then why did you text her that she would regret it? Tyler's expression flickered. Dude, I was just talking trash. It doesn't mean anything. It means something when the person you threatened ends up dead 3 days later. I didn't kill her, Tyler said, his voice gaining an edge. I was at a party. I have witnesses. The interrogation continued for another hour, but Tyler never wavered from his story. When Detective Ruiz finally let him go, Tyler walked out with the same confidence he had walked in with. Detective Ruiz spent the next week verifying Tyler's alibi. He interviewed Derek Mason, who confirmed Tyler had been at his house on Halloween night. But as Ruiz dug deeper, cracks appeared. Several people had not seen Tyler between approximately 9:15 and 9:45. One girl named Jessica Tran said she had specifically noticed Tyler leaving through the back door around 9:20. Detective Ruiz pulled surveillance footage from nearby homes. A neighbor's security camera caught someone in a dark, hooded costume walking away from Derek's house at 9:22. The figure's height and build matched Tyler. The costume matched Tyler's Grim Reaper outfit. Detective Ruiz obtained Tyler's cell phone records. The geolocation data showed Tyler's phone moving from the party toward Willow Creek Park between 9:21 and 9:47. Then it returned by 10:05. The timeline matched Emily's disappearance perfectly. When confronted, Tyler's story changed. Now he admitted leaving the party briefly for some air. He said he had walked around the neighborhood, but had not gone near the park. He had not seen Emily. When asked why he had lied, Tyler said he had forgotten. Details were fuzzy. The forensic team had been working on evidence from the crime scene. One fiber found on Emily's jacket caught forensic specialist Dr. Linda Hammond's attention. It was a synthetic black fiber, consistent with polyester costume material. Dr. Hammond ran tests comparing it to fibers from Tyler's Grim Reaper costume, which had been seized during a search of the Reddick home. The fibers matched. Same composition, same dye lot, same manufacturing characteristics. The case was building. Motive, threatening text messages, opportunity, unaccounted time, and phone location data. Physical evidence, fiber match. But Angela Torres knew it was not enough. Defense attorneys could create reasonable doubt from almost anything. Angela needed something that could not be explained away. She needed absolute proof. She found it in the most unexpected place. On November 10th, Detective Ruiz received a call from Robert Reddick, Tyler's father. The man's voice was barely audible, choked with emotion. He said he needed to talk in person. He said he had found something important. They met at a coffee shop. Robert Reddick looked like he had not slept in days. His hands shook as he placed a small digital storage device on the table. It was a micro-secure digital card. I found this in Tyler's room, Robert said, his voice breaking. Behind his desk. I don't think he knew it was missing. It's from a camera Tyler had put inside his Halloween mask. I watched it, Detective. My son killed that girl, and he recorded it. Detective Ruiz felt the air leave the room. Mr. Reddick, if this contains what you say it contains, it will be used as evidence against your son. Are you certain you want to give this to me? Robert Reddick's eyes filled with tears. Emily Ward was 14 years old. My son took that from her. I've been lying to myself, telling myself he couldn't have done it. But there's no excuse for what's on that card. If I protect him, I'm no better than he is. Yes, Detective, I'm certain. Detective Ruiz took the card and immediately called the forensic team. The card was logged into evidence with full chain of custody documentation. Dr. Michael Chen, the county's digital forensics expert, was called in to analyze it. The extraction took 6 hours. When it was complete, Dr. Chen called Angela Torres and Detective Ruiz into the lab. "You need to see this," he said quietly. The video was 27 minutes long. It began with darkness and muffled sounds. The camera inside the mask activated but covered. Then light filtered through as Tyler put the mask on. The mask's eye holes created limited visibility, but the camera, mounted on the inside facing forward, captured what Tyler saw through those holes plus periodic reflections of his own face in the plastic interior of the mask. The timestamp read October 31st, 9:14 in the evening. The geolocation data embedded in the file showed Pinecrest Drive, Derrick Mason Street. Tyler's voice came through clearly. "Let's go find her," he said to himself. He was breathing quickly, excited. The camera captured his view as he walked away from the party, down the street toward Maple Street. He moved with purpose, not wandering, not getting air, hunting. At 9:23, the camera picked up movement ahead. A small figure in a witch costume walking alone. Emily Ward. Tyler's breathing became faster. He started walking more quickly. The camera showed Emily turning onto a side street that led toward Willow Creek Park. Tyler followed. His voice came through again, whisper quiet but unmistakable. "There you are. Thought you could ignore me." The pursuit lasted 4 minutes. Emily seemed unaware that she was being followed. She walked at a normal pace, her candy bucket swinging in her hand. Tyler closed the distance. When Emily reached the edge of the park, near the drainage ditch, Tyler called out, "Hey, Emily." The camera showed Emily turning around. Even through the limited view and darkness, her body language was clear. She was startled, frightened. She recognized him despite the mask. She started to back away. Tyler moved forward. The camera angle jerked and bounced as a physical altercation began. Emily's voice, high and terrified, shouting for help. Tyler's voice, angry and cold, telling her to shut up. The sounds of a struggle, a cry of pain, then silence. The camera steadied. It showed Emily's body lying motionless in the grass near the ditch. Tyler stood over her, breathing hard. He pulled his mask up slightly, just enough to see better, and his face was visible in the reflection inside the mask. He was smiling. Not a smile of shock or horror, a smile of satisfaction, a victory. Then he spoke, and his words were recorded with perfect clarity. "Told you I'd get you back, Emily. Told you." He stood there for another minute, looking down at what he had done. Then he pulled the mask back down, turned, and walked away. The camera recorded his return journey. Back through the park, back to Maple Street, back to Derrick Mason's house. At 10:04, he took the mask off and the video ended. Angela Torres watched the video 3 times in complete silence. When it finished the 3rd time, she looked at Detective Ruiz and said, "We have him. This is it. This is everything." "Will it be admissible?" Ruiz asked. "Yes," Angela said with absolute certainty. Robert Reddick had legal access to his son's room. The card was in plain view behind the desk. The chain of custody is documented. The digital authentication will show it hasn't been altered. And even if the defense tries to challenge it, the content is so damning that any jury will convict based on this alone. Tyler Reddick just convicted himself. The trial began on November 15th. The prosecution did not reveal the existence of the mass camera video in their opening statement. Angela Torres made a calculated decision to present the case chronologically, building evidence piece by piece before delivering the final, devastating blow. She wanted the jury to see the accumulation of evidence first, to understand the full scope of the crime before they saw Tyler's own confession. The first day of trial focused on establishing the facts of Emily's death and the investigation. The medical examiner testified about the cause of death. Photographs of the crime scene were entered into evidence. Emily's mother testified, her voice steady despite visible grief, describing Emily's plans that night, her curfew, the moment she realized her daughter had not come home. Several jury members wiped tears from their eyes. Tyler sat at the defense table with the same casual arrogance he had displayed at the arraignment. He leaned back in his chair. He stretched his arms. He whispered comments to his attorney, who increasingly looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. At one point, Tyler caught the eye of a sketch artist in the gallery and winked. The artist, appalled, captured the expression in her drawing. That sketch would be on the front page of the Ravenbrook Gazette the next morning. On the second day of trial, the prosecution presented the motive evidence. Detective Ruiz testified about the threatening text messages between Tyler and Emily. The messages were displayed on a large screen for the jury to read. Tyler rolled his eyes when his words appeared. "I always get even." He mouthed the word dramatic toward the prosecutor's table. Angela Torres made note of it. The defense's theory, as outlined by Marcus Holbrook, was that Tyler was a normal teenage boy who had been frustrated by rejection but had done nothing wrong. The text messages were unfortunate, Holbrook admitted, but they were not proof of murder. They were proof of immaturity, of poor judgment, not of criminal intent. Tyler had been at a party all night. Yes, he had stepped outside briefly, but he had not gone near the park. He had not seen Emily. The fiber evidence could be explained by innocent contact at school. There was no direct evidence linking Tyler to the crime. The case was circumstantial. On day 3, Jessica Tran testified that she had seen Tyler leave Derek Mason's party around 9:20. "He went out the back door," she said. "I noticed because he seemed like he was in a hurry, like he had somewhere to be." Marcus Holbrook cross-examined her aggressively. "How much had you been drinking that night, Miss Tran?" "I hadn't been drinking at all," Jessica said calmly. "I don't drink." "But others at the party were drinking?" "Yes." "And it was dark outside?" "Yes." "And people were coming and going all night?" "Yes." "So, is it possible you saw someone else leave? Someone in a similar costume?" "No," Jessica said firmly. "I know Tyler. We've been in the same grade since 6th grade. It was him." Tyler glared at Jessica from the defense table. He leaned over to Marcus and whispered something. Marcus shook his head. Tyler whispered more insistently. Marcus's face reddened, but he returned to his seat without further questions. On day 4, the prosecution presented the cell phone geolocation data. A telecommunications expert explained how cell towers triangulate phone positions. He showed the jury a map with Tyler's movements plotted in red. From the party to Maple Street. From Maple Street toward Willow Creek Park, then back. The timeline matched Emily's disappearance exactly. The expert testified that the margin of error in the geolocation was approximately 30 meters, which meant Tyler's phone had been within close proximity to the crime scene during the window when Emily was killed. Marcus Holbrook argued that the phone data proved only that Tyler had walked in that general direction, not that he had been in the park itself or that he had encountered Emily. "My client has admitted he went for a walk," Holbrook said. "That's not a crime." Walking near a park is not murder. On day 5, Dr. Linda Hammond testified about the fiber evidence. She brought samples and charts. She explained the matching process in careful detail. She testified that in her expert opinion, the fiber found on Emily's jacket came from Tyler's costume. The probability of it coming from another source was infinitesimally small. Tyler yawned during her testimony. He stretched his arms above his head, making the movement visible to everyone in the courtroom. Judge Bryant warned him. "Mr. Reddick, I have told you repeatedly to show respect in this courtroom. If you cannot control yourself, I will have you removed." Tyler shrugged. "Sorry, Your Honor," he said, but his tone made it clear he was not sorry at all. The prosecution rested their case on the afternoon of day 5. The evidence had been presented, the timeline established, the motive explored. But Angela Torres had one more piece of evidence to present, and she was saving it for rebuttal. She knew the defense would put on their case next. She knew Tyler would probably testify. His ego would not allow him to stay silent. And after he testified, after he committed himself to his lies under oath, she would reveal the video, the smoking gun that would end everything. Marcus Holbrook put on a brief defense. He called character witnesses who testified that Tyler was a good student, a good athlete, a normal kid. He called Derek Mason, who testified that he believed Tyler had been at the party most of the night. He called a forensic expert who suggested that fiber transfer could happen through secondary contact and did not necessarily prove Tyler had been present during the attack. The testimony was competent but not compelling. Everyone in the courtroom could sense that the defense was weak. They were working with limited ammunition. On day 6, Tyler Reddick took the stand. Against his attorney's advice, against all common sense. But Tyler believed he could talk his way out of anything. He believed he was smarter than everyone in the room. He sat in the witness chair, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. Then he proceeded to lie. Marcus Holbrook led him through direct examination. Tyler testified that he had been at the party all night, except for a brief walk. He said he had been upset about some things and needed fresh air. He had walked around the neighborhood, but he had not gone to Willow Creek Park. He had not seen Emily. He did not know how his costume fiber got on Emily's jacket, but he had never touched her that night. He had nothing to do with her death. He was innocent. Tyler spoke confidently, making eye contact with the jury. He tried to appear sincere, remorseful about Emily's death, but clear about his innocence. He was performing. One last time. Then Angela Torres stood for cross-examination, and the performance began to crumble. "Mr. Reddick," Angela began, her voice sharp and clear, "you testified that you barely knew Emily Ward. Is that correct?" "We went to the same school," Tyler said. "But we weren't friends." "But you asked her out, didn't you?" "Yeah, once." "Once? Let me show you these text messages." Angela had a series of texts displayed on the screen. "These show you asking Emily out 5 separate times over 3 weeks. Does that refresh your memory?" Tyler shifted in his seat. "Okay, maybe more than once. I was interested. She wasn't. Whatever. And when she rejected you? You became angry." "I was disappointed. Not angry." "Not angry? Let me read one of your messages to the jury." Quote, "You think you're so much better than me, but you're not. You'll regret treating me like trash. I always get even." "Did you send that message?" "Yeah, but I didn't mean anything by it." "You didn't mean it when you said you always get even?" "It was just talk." "Just talk," Angela repeated. "Like when you told your friends that Emily needed to be taught a lesson?" Tyler's eyes widened slightly. "I never said that. We have 3 witnesses who will testify that you said exactly that at lunch 2 weeks before Halloween. Tyler's jaw clenched. Then they're lying. 3 separate people are lying about the exact same statement? I don't know why they would say that, but I never said it. Angela changed direction. You testified that you left the party to get some air. Where did you walk? Just around the neighborhood. Did you walk east on Pinecrest Drive? Maybe. Did you walk south on Oakmont Avenue? I don't remember exactly. Did you walk on Maple Street? Tyler hesitated. I might have. You might have walked on Maple Street, which is 2 blocks from Willow Creek Park? I didn't go to the park. But you were in the area. I was walking around. I don't know exactly where I went. Your cell phone knows exactly where you went, Angela said. And it shows you within 300 feet of where Emily Ward's body was found, at the exact time she was being killed. Explain that, Mr. Reddick. I must have walked near there, but I didn't see her. I didn't do anything to her. You must have walked near there, Angela repeated, her voice dripping with skepticism. How convenient. You coincidentally walked past the exact spot where the girl you threatened was murdered, at the exact time she was murdered, wearing a costume that left fibers on her body. But you had nothing to do with it. That's right, Tyler said. But his voice had lost some of its confidence. Sweat was visible on his forehead. Mr. Reddick, you've been smirking and stretching and yawning throughout this trial. You've shown nothing but contempt for these proceedings. Do you think Emily Ward's death is funny? No. Do you think this trial is a joke? No. Then why have you been acting like it is? I haven't been acting any way. I'm just sitting here. You've been performing, haven't you? You've been playing a role. The role of the innocent, confident teenager who's been wrongly accused. I'm not performing. I'm telling the truth. Are you? Angela looked at him for a long moment. No further questions, Your Honor. Tyler left the stand, believing he had held his own. He returned to the defense table with a slight smile. He had no idea that in less than an hour, his entire world would collapse. The prosecution called their rebuttal witness, Dr. Michael Chen, digital forensics expert. He took the stand and was sworn in. Angela Torres stood and addressed the court. Your Honor, the state has a final piece of evidence to present. We were not aware of this evidence until recently, and we believe it is conclusive proof of the defendant's guilt. We ask the court's permission to present video evidence recovered from a device belonging to the defendant. Marcus Holbrook shot to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. The prosecution cannot introduce new evidence at this stage without prior disclosure. Your Honor, Angela said calmly, this evidence came to light only days before trial through the voluntary cooperation of the defendant's father. It was immediately processed and authenticated. The defense has been provided a copy as of this morning. The evidence is directly relevant and highly probative. Judge Bryant considered for a moment. I'll allow it. But I want a full foundation for admissibility. Dr. Chen, please explain to the jury what you do and what you examined in this case. Dr. Chen nodded. He was a thin man in his 40s, with wire-rimmed glasses and a calm demeanor. I am a digital forensics specialist, he began. My job is to recover, authenticate, and analyze digital evidence from electronic devices. In this case, I was asked to examine a micro-secure digital card that had been recovered from the defendant's bedroom by his father and turned over to Detective Ruiz. What did you find on this card? Angela asked. A video file, 27 minutes in length, recorded on October 31st of this year, beginning at 9:14 in the evening. How do you know the video is authentic and has not been altered? Dr. Chen spent the next 15 minutes explaining the authentication process. He described the metadata embedded in the file, the timestamp, the geolocation data, the device signature that matched a specific camera model. He explained that he had performed hash value comparisons to ensure the file had not been modified since its creation. He testified that, in his expert opinion, the video was genuine, unaltered, and accurately dated and located. "And what does this video show?" Angela asked. Dr. Chen took a breath. "It shows the defendant, Tyler Reddick, following Emily Ward on Halloween night, confronting her, attacking her, and standing over her body after she was killed." The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs. Judge Bryant banged her gavel. "Order! Order in the court!" At the defense table, Tyler's face had gone white. He leaned over to Marcus and whispered urgently. Marcus looked stricken. He requested a sidebar. Judge Bryant called both attorneys to the bench. The conversation was heated, but whispered. The jury could not hear, but they could see Marcus Holbrook's desperate gestures and Angela Torres's calm, resolute expression. When the sidebar ended, Marcus looked defeated. "Your Honor," Angela said, "the state requests permission to play the video for the jury." Judge Bryant looked at the jury. "Ladies and gentlemen, you are about to see video evidence that may be disturbing. If you need to take a break at any point, please indicate so. Are you ready to proceed?" The jury members nodded. Several of them were already staring at Tyler, whose hands were now shaking visibly on the table. The courtroom lights were dimmed. A large screen was set up facing the jury. The video began to play. For the first few seconds, there was only darkness and muffled sound. Then the camera came to life as Tyler put the mask on. The timestamp appeared in the corner. October 31st, 9:14 in the evening. The geolocation coordinates displayed below it, matching Derek Mason's street. The camera captured Tyler's view through the mask as he walked away from the party. His breathing was audible, quick and excited. "Let's go find her." Tyler's voice came through clearly, and several jury members flinched at the cold determination in those words. The video showed Tyler's journey through the neighborhood. Street by street, block by block. The camera captured everything. Every step was deliberate. This was not a casual walk. This was a pursuit. At 9:23, Emily Ward appeared in the frame. Small, alone, vulnerable in her witch costume. The jury watched as Tyler followed her, his breathing growing faster, his pace quickening. When Emily turned onto the side street leading to the park, Tyler followed without hesitation. The courtroom was absolutely silent. Every eye was fixed on the screen. Emily's mother had her hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Her husband had his arm around her, but he was staring at the screen with an expression of profound horror. "There you are," Tyler's voice said on the recording. "Thought you could ignore me." The camera showed Emily walking alone, unaware. The distance between them closed. Then Tyler called out, "Hey, Emily." On screen, Emily turned around. Even through the limited view and the darkness, her body language was unmistakable. She was scared. She recognized him. She started backing away. Tyler moved forward. What happened next lasted less than 2 minutes, but it felt like an eternity. The camera jerked and bounced as the attack unfolded. Emily's voice crying out for help. Tyler's voice, cold and angry, telling her to shut up. The sounds of a struggle, a sharp cry of pain, then terrible, awful silence. The camera steadied. It showed Emily's body lying motionless in the grass. Tyler stood over her, his breathing hard and ragged. He pulled the mask up just enough to see better, and in the reflection inside the plastic, his face was clearly visible. He was smiling, not grimacing, not horrified, smiling, like he had just accomplished something he was proud of. Then he spoke, and his words cut through the silent courtroom like a blade. "Told you I'd get you back, Emily. Told you." He stood there for another full minute, looking down at what he had done. Then he pulled the mask back down, turned, and walked away. The camera recorded his return journey. Through the park, back to the streets, back to the party. At 10:04, he removed the mask and the recording ended. The screen went black, the courtroom lights came back up. For several seconds, no one moved. No one spoke. Then one of the jury members, a woman in her 60s, began to cry softly. Another jury member, a man in his 40s, was staring at Tyler with undisguised revulsion. Tyler sat frozen at the defense table. All color had drained from his face. His hands were trembling so violently that he had to grip the edge of the table to keep them still. The smirk was gone. The confidence was gone. The performance was over. He looked like what he was, a 16-year-old boy who had just been exposed as a murderer by his own recording. Angela Torres let the silence stretch. She wanted the jury to sit with what they had just seen, to absorb it fully. Then she turned to Dr. Chen. "Dr. Chen, you have authenticated this video. Can you confirm for the jury that this recording came from a camera device belonging to the defendant?" "Yes," Dr. Chen said. "The device signature matches a camera purchased by Tyler Reddick online in September of this year. The purchase was made using his email address and delivered to his home address." "And the voice on the recording, have you compared it to known samples of the defendant's voice?" "Yes. Voice analysis confirms a match with extremely high probability. The voice on the recording is Tyler Reddick's voice." "Thank you, Dr. Chen. No further questions." Marcus Holbrook stood slowly. He looked like a man who had aged a decade in the last 30 minutes. He approached the witness, but seemed unsure what to ask. He glanced back at Tyler, whose head was now bowed, staring at the table. "Dr. Chen," Marcus began, his voice lacking any force, "is there any possibility that this video could have been fabricated using artificial intelligence or deep fake technology?" "No," Dr. Chen said firmly. "I specifically tested for digital manipulation. The file shows no signs of editing, splicing, or artificial generation. It is a continuous, authentic recording from the original device." "But technology exists that could create such a video, correct?" "Technology exists that can create convincing fake videos," Dr. Chen agreed. "But such videos leave detectable artifacts in the metadata and file structure. This video contains none of those artifacts. It is genuine." Marcus had no more questions. He returned to his seat and sat down heavily. Tyler was staring at his hands, which were still shaking. His father, Robert Reddick, sat in the gallery with his face buried in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Angela Torres stood. "Your Honor, the state rests." Judge Bryant looked at the defense table. "Mr. Holbrook, does the defense wish to present any further evidence?" Marcus Holbrook glanced at Tyler one more time, then stood. "No, Your Honor. The defense rests." The judge nodded. "Very well. We will hear closing arguments tomorrow morning. Court is adjourned." As the bailiff called for everyone to rise, Tyler remained seated, unable to move. The bailiff had to physically help him to his feet. As he was led from the courtroom, he looked back once at the gallery, searching for his father. But Robert Reddick did not meet his son's eyes. He kept his face turned away, unable to look at what his son had become. That night, the video clip was the lead story on every news station in Texas and across the country. The fact that Tyler had recorded his own crime, that he had essentially created the evidence that would convict him, became a symbol of narcissistic arrogance taken to its ultimate extreme. Legal experts appeared on talk shows discussing the case. Mental health professionals analyzed Tyler's behavior. The consensus was universal. Tyler Reddick had been so convinced of his own superiority, so certain that he would never be caught, that he had documented his own crime as a trophy. And that recording had become his downfall. The next morning, closing arguments were brief. Marcus Holbrook made a half-hearted attempt to suggest that the video did not show the moment of death, that perhaps Emily had been alive when Tyler left and someone else had finished what he started. But no one in the courtroom believed it. The argument was transparently desperate. Angela Torres's closing argument was devastating in its simplicity. She did not need to be dramatic. She simply reviewed the evidence, the motive, the opportunity, the physical evidence, and finally, the video. Tyler's own words, his own face, his own confession, recorded by his own hand. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," Angela concluded, "this is the most clear-cut case of premeditated murder you will ever see. The defendant did not just commit this crime. He documented it. He was so arrogant, so convinced of his own invincibility, that he wore a camera while he hunted and killed Emily Ward. He thought he was above consequences. He thought he could perform his way through this trial. But the truth, captured by his own device, has destroyed that performance. Emily Ward was 14 years old. She had dreams. She had a future. Tyler Reddick took all of that from her because she rejected him, because his ego could not accept being told no. This is not reckless endangerment. This is murder, and you must find him guilty. The jury deliberated for 73 minutes. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. Tyler showed no reaction when the verdict was read. He simply sat there, staring straight ahead, his face blank. The fight had gone out of him. The performance was finished. He was no longer Tyler Reddick, the confident teenager who thought he was untouchable. He was just a convicted murderer waiting for sentencing. Sentencing was scheduled for 1 week later. The prosecution had filed a motion to certify Tyler as an adult, given the severity and premeditation of the crime. The judge took the motion under advisement. On the day of sentencing, the courtroom was once again packed. Emily's family filled the front row. Robert Reddick sat alone in the back, separated from the other spectators by several empty seats, as if grief and shame created a physical barrier around him. Judge Bryant entered and took her seat. Her expression was grave. She called for victim impact statements. Emily's mother, Susan Ward, walked slowly to the witness stand. She had prepared a written statement, but when she stood to read it, her voice broke immediately. "Emily loved Halloween," Susan began, tears already flowing. She had been planning her witch costume for weeks. She was so excited that night. I watched her leave the house with her friends, and she was smiling. She was so happy. That's the last memory I have of my daughter alive and happy. The last time I saw her, she was carrying a candy bucket shaped like a pumpkin. That bucket is still in her room. I can't bring myself to move it. Her costume is still hanging in her closet. I walk past her room every day, and every day I think about how she should still be here. She should be getting ready for school. She should be complaining about homework. She should be asking to borrow my car. She should be alive. Susan's voice broke completely, and she had to stop. She took several deep breaths, wiping her eyes. Tyler Reddick took my daughter from me because she said no to him, because she didn't want to date him. He decided that she deserved to die for that. He hunted her. He killed her. He stood over her body and smiled. And then he came to court and treated it like a game. Like her life meant nothing. Like our grief meant nothing. I don't know if 16 years old is old enough to understand evil. But what Tyler did to Emily was evil. Pure evil. And I hope that whatever punishment he receives, he spends every single day of it thinking about what he took from our family. What he took from Emily. She was kind. She was smart. She was loved. And now she's gone forever because of him. Susan sat down, her husband taking her hand. Several jury members were crying. Even the bailiff looked shaken. Then came the moment everyone had been waiting for. Judge Bryant looked down at Tyler from the bench. Her expression was one of controlled fury. This was not going to be a typical sentencing. This was going to be a condemnation. Tyler James Reddick, Judge Bryant began, and her voice filled the courtroom with authority and moral weight. In my 23 years on this bench, I have seen countless defendants. I have seen young people who made terrible mistakes in moments of anger or fear or desperation. I have seen defendants who showed remorse, who took responsibility, who tried to make amends for what they had done. But I have never, in all my years, seen a defendant like you. I have never witnessed such callous disregard for human life, such complete lack of empathy, such staggering arrogance. Tyler sat perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the table in front of him. This court has watched you, Mr. Reddick, the judge continued. We have watched you smirk and stretch and yawn while Emily Ward's family sobbed in the gallery. We have watched you treat these proceedings like entertainment. Like you were the star of some show and we were all just extras in your performance. You have shown nothing but contempt for this court, for the jury, for the victim, and for the victim's family. You have acted as if you were above the law, above consequences, above basic human decency. Judge Bryant's voice grew harder. But this court has also watched something else. We have watched your performance crumble. We have watched your confidence evaporate when confronted with truth. We have watched the moment, captured on video, when you realized that you were not as smart as you thought you were, that you were not untouchable, that you had, in fact, been caught by your own arrogance. You recorded your crime, Mr. Reddick. You documented your own premeditated murder of a 14-year-old girl. Not because you needed to, not because it served any purpose, but because you were so convinced of your superiority that you wanted a trophy. You wanted proof of what you had done. You wanted to be able to look back and relive your moment of power over another human being. The judge paused, letting the words hang in the air. Tyler's shoulders had begun to shake. Silent tears ran down his face, but he did not make a sound. Emily Ward died on Halloween night, Judge Bryant said, her voice now heavy with sorrow. She died alone and terrified in a dark park, killed by someone she went to school with. Someone who couldn't accept being rejected. Someone who decided that his wounded ego was more important than her life. She was 14 years old, Mr. Reddick. 14. She should be in high school right now. She should be studying for exams. She should be laughing with friends. She should be arguing with her parents about curfew. She should be planning what colleges to apply to. She should be living her life. But she can't. Because you took that life from her. You hunted her. You attacked her. You killed her. And then you bragged about it. Quote, "Told you I'd get you back, Emily. Told you." Those were your words, your confession, your proof that this was not an accident or a moment of rage. This was planned. This was intentional. This was murder. Judge Bryant's hands gripped the edge of the bench. You have been found guilty by a jury of your peers. The evidence against you is overwhelming. But beyond the legal finding of guilt, I want you to understand something, Mr. Reddick. What you did was not just illegal. It was morally reprehensible. It was an act of pure selfishness and cruelty. You ended a human life because of your pride, because you couldn't stand being told no, because you valued your own ego more than another person's existence. That is not just a crime. That is a fundamental betrayal of what it means to be human. That is evil. Tyler's entire body was shaking now. His face was buried in his hands. All the confidence, all the swagger, all the performance had been stripped away. What remained was a broken 16-year-old who had destroyed his own life along with Emily's. The state has requested that you be certified as an adult for sentencing purposes. Judge Bryant continued. Given the premeditated nature of this crime, the lack of remorse demonstrated throughout these proceedings, and the need to protect society from further harm, I am granting that request. You will be sentenced as an adult, with a blended sentence that begins in the juvenile system and transitions to adult prison when you turn 18. Tyler made a sound, a choked sob, but he did not look up. Emily Ward's family will never get their daughter back, the judge said. They will carry this grief for the rest of their lives. Every holiday, every birthday, every family gathering will be marked by Emily's absence. You did that to them, Mr. Reddick. You created that permanent wound. And while no punishment can undo what you have done, this court can and will ensure that you are held accountable for your actions. Judge Bryant opened the sentencing document in front of her. Tyler James Reddick, you are hereby sentenced to 40 years in the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. Due to the blended sentencing structure, you will begin serving this sentence in a juvenile facility until you reach the age of 19, at which point you will be transferred to an adult facility to serve the remainder of your sentence. You will be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 20 years, at which point the parole board will evaluate whether you have been sufficiently rehabilitated to rejoin society. Given your age and your behavior throughout this trial, I have serious doubts about your capacity for rehabilitation. But that will be for the parole board to determine 2 decades from now. The judge closed the file. I want you to understand what this sentence means, Mr. Reddick. It means that you will spend the next 40 years in prison. You will miss your entire 20s, your entire 30s. You will be in your mid-50s before you are even eligible for parole. You will miss graduations and weddings and births and all the ordinary moments that make up a life. You will spend those decades surrounded by bars and guards and other criminals. That is what your arrogance has cost you. That is what your crime has earned you. Judge Bryant leaned forward slightly, making direct eye contact with Tyler for the first time since the sentencing began. But more importantly, Mr. Reddick, I want you to think about Emily. Every single day. I want you to remember that she was a real person with a real life that you ended. I want you to remember her family's grief. I want you to remember the sounds she made when she cried out for help. I want you to remember what you saw on that video screen when your crime was played back for the jury. I want those memories to haunt you. Because that is the only way you will ever come close to understanding what you have done. That is the only way you might, someday, develop the capacity for genuine remorse. The judge's voice dropped to just above a whisper, but every word was audible in the silent courtroom. Arrogance, Mr. Reddick, collapses under truth. You thought you were smarter than everyone. You thought you could get away with murder. You thought you could perform your way through a trial. But the truth, captured by your own camera, in your own voice, destroyed all of that. The truth revealed you not as the confident, untouchable person you pretended to be, but as a selfish, cruel, dangerous individual who took a life and felt pride in doing so. May this sentence serve as a reminder to you and to anyone watching this case. Arrogance collapses under truth. Always. Judge Bryant struck her gavel once, the sound echoing through the courtroom like a final punctuation mark. This court is adjourned. Tyler was led from the courtroom in handcuffs. He walked with his head down, his face streaked with tears, his entire body shaking. The performance was over. The mask had been removed. He was no longer the arrogant teenager who had swaggered into the courtroom 3 weeks earlier. He was a convicted murderer beginning a 40-year sentence, and the weight of that reality had finally broken through his delusion. Robert Reddick remained in the back of the courtroom long after everyone else had left. He sat alone in the empty room, staring at the empty defense table where his son had sat. He had done the right thing by turning over the video. He knew that. But knowing it was right did not make it hurt any less. He had lost his son, not to death, but to his son's own actions. And that loss was perhaps harder to bear than if Tyler had died. Because Tyler was still alive, still his son, but also a stranger, a person Robert did not recognize, a person who had killed a child and smiled about it. Outside the courthouse, Emily's family gathered with supporters and press. Susan Ward made a brief statement, thanking the prosecutor, the police, and the jury. "We will never get our daughter back," she said, her voice steady now. "But knowing that the person who took her from us will be held accountable gives us some measure of peace. Emily deserved justice. Today she got it." In the weeks that followed, the Tyler Reddick case became a reference point in discussions about narcissism, youth violence, and unchecked arrogance. Law enforcement agencies used the case as a training example of digital evidence recovery. Schools used it in programs about respect and healthy relationships. In Willow Creek Park, the town erected a memorial for Emily Ward. It was a simple granite stone with her name, her dates, and a single line: "Gone too soon, but never forgotten." Every Halloween, people left flowers and candy at the memorial. The case closed. The sentence was imposed. Tyler Reddick began his 40-year journey through the criminal justice system. Emily Ward was laid to rest in Ravenbrook Cemetery. And Ravenbrook, Texas, tried to heal from the wound that Halloween night had left in its heart. Justice had been done. Emily had been heard. Tyler had been held accountable. In a world where so many crimes go unpunished, that meant something.